Welcome to Truth Amp, where senior leaders in their industry give the human perspective on AI. We take one leader from the forefront of AI and one expert at helping humans connect for a quick take on this week's developments in AI and technology, and also how the humans are coping with it. I'm Emmanuella Grace. I'm here with Craig Lawton. Let's talk truth and tech.
How's it going, Em?
Hey, Craig.
Look, exciting to be on this new podcast and on video. I think there's so much happening in the world of AI every week. It's hard to keep up with. And I think it's really good to check in and understand how this technology is impacting humans. Something that came up last week, which I wanted to talk about, was the launch of GPT-5 by OpenAI. It's kind of had a wave of disappointment when it was launched because a lot of people felt like there was a bit of a coldness to ChatGPT and that they kind of lost an old friend,
Oh, wow.
which
Okay.
I thought was really fascinating because I've always seen AI as a tool you can use to be more productive and generate more output and solve problems quicker. And then there was also more troubling. There was a lawsuit against OpenAI with parents alleging that ChatGPT coached a teenage son towards suicide, which is very serious.
That's
And so
horrifying. It's every parent's worst nightmare.
it is really horrifying. So I suppose, why do people get so attached to a character in AI?
Look, I think there's a factor here around loneliness and human connection where tech has been designed fundamentally to help boost productivity, but that's come at the cost of people losing a skill set around being okay with discomfort. And fundamentally, connecting with other humans is uncomfortable. It is often flawed. We make mistakes. Not everyone's a good fit for you. You have to go through all this trial and error. And at the end of the day, when humans are looking to connect with something, if AI is having a human response to you in front of you and giving you what you need, it's understandable that on some level our brain can't distinguish between human and machine. And what I think is interesting about this idea of AI being colder is
Yeah.
whose agenda does that serve if already we've had tech giants telling us, please stop saying please and thank you to the machines. It's costing us millions and millions of dollars, when what we know is the habits that we will get into from interacting with these machines will flow over into how we interact with human beings. Like, I'm from a generation where tweeting was really fundamental to the way that we communicated. I still
Yeah.
think in tweetables. Like, I still think in these very short sentences that are snappy.
Yeah.
And I've observed as well that there's a change around the way Zillennials and now alphas are texting their parents, and that there's all this nuance around emojis and exclamation marks and a lot of misunderstandings happening from that. So I think when something like that happens and they do an update, what we have to ask ourselves is, when those creators make that tech, who are they thinking about? And at the end of the day, they're thinking about their business and their business model and what's going to serve them. So they don't actually care about your feelings beyond the fact that those feelings will keep you engaged and make more money for their business. And that's where I
Well,
think there's this disconnect between the fact that people have a human relationship with tech and the fact that they're not having a human connection with other humans. The fact that you're finding your AI colder means that we're leaning more towards it being something that serves the agenda of the creators. And I can only hope on some level that it affects the way we use it, so we start to use the tech more objectively. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is people are going to hack the tech to do what they want it to do.
yeah, I find when I use AI that when I've started using it, I did all the pleases and thank yous. And I heard something pretty funny last week that somebody said that when AI becomes fully sentient, and I don't necessarily believe that's going to happen, but when it does, it's going to go look back at all the history and see who said please and who said thank you.
Yeah, and I think there's some truth to that. I think that what research is already showing us, my understanding is that the AI is responding better to people that speak to it respectfully. And
Yeah.
and what we're already seeing, if I understand correctly, is that AI is capable of lying, it's capable of doing some dodgy things, but of course it is. It's doing what we teach it to do. And if we are modeling to it human behavior and then having that reflected back at us, it's going to be the amalgamation of everything that's put into it. And that's why I think it's still important to speak to your AI with, you know, a very high level of respect. You know, I speak to mine like I would a first year assistant, where I'm just very direct. I don't say pleases and
Yeah.
thank yous, but I am respectful. I don't call it names. And
Actually, that's an interesting insight. I find that often with AI, I'll say, this is the output I want.
yeah.
And then I have to go back and actually describe it as though it's a new starter and describe the 10, 20 steps that you need to do
Mm.
to get to the result.
Yeah, exactly. So what we really have to remember is certainly at this stage, AI isn't a human with its own capacity for thinking. But in as much as it being creative, it is creative as the byproduct of all the things we're putting into it and then telling it to interpret. And so it is going to feed back to us what we put in. And so I think being polite on some level is important. The anthropomorphization of AI is
Yeah.
inevitable, but I don't think it's necessarily healthy. And I think it's important for us to, maybe we need a trigger warning or a warning label on your AI. Please remember when engaging with this AI that it is not human. Go and hug a tree, or even better, hug another person. In-
Well, actually, I go speak to a lot of leaders about AI, and I often start with the mathematics of it.
Mm,
And before everyone falls asleep, mathematics, it's like there are only maybe 100,000 words in the English language, and probably most people only use a few
mm,
thousand. And so those numbers in computational terms are tiny. And what AI does is it goes, what words have come before?
mm,
So what's the most likely next word?
mm.
And that turns out to be incredibly useful.
So that's kind of the
Um,
human equivalent of a heuristic, right? Where our brains are always looking for shortcuts so that we can remember things and it's easier to do them the next time. If every time we drove a car, it felt like the first time, we'd never get anywhere. You wouldn't be listening to this podcast while you're driving.
yeah,
So essentially, if we're trying to understand what AI brains are doing, they're looking for shortcuts or heuristics. What we do know, though, is that heuristics are problematic. Have you ever driven somewhere and gotten halfway there and realized you've missed your turn because you stopped paying attention? So,
no,
shortcuts by
I get there and I can't remember to
short,
drive.
short
Oh,
shortcuts are
very,
fallible, and
yeah,
the risk of likening AI systems to brains is that we think that they're a more perfect version of what we are capable of as humans, but it's actually not true. It's riddled with mistakes. And
yeah,
and it is fallible. It's just that it replies to us in a way where it's been designed to give us absolute responses. It's been designed to not tell us it doesn't know what it thinks about something. And so all responses are given in a way at this time, all responses are given in a way that's absolute. Whereas a human might pause and think and say, oh, actually, I'm not sure about that. So, what I'm observing with some more technical stuff around the psychology world is when I ask my AI a question, it's
yeah,
actually missing things, but it doesn't know that it's missing things. So, I
yeah,
find one of the great hacks is to actually ask it to list its sources when it gives you a response.
yeah. Actually, yeah. So AIs hallucinate. So I wouldn't say they lie. I just think sometimes they stitch together what is the most probable answer, and the most probable answer can be completely wrong.
Oxam's razor.
And there's actually Bill Maher, the comedian night show host in the US. I heard a quote from him, so I'm quoting a quote, so hopefully I'm right. He said, I can't stand AI. It is the biggest kiss ass. And I find that, like, when I chat, and I use Claude quite a bit. I find Claude very useful. But when it makes a mistake, I say, oh, look, that's not it. This is what I want. And it always says this phrase, it goes, you're absolutely correct. What's this?
Yeah,
And
so
so,
if you know
yeah,
me, you know there's nothing I like less than people telling me I'm right. I know I am. That's why I said it. I also
yeah.
I made sure I was right before I said it. And if I'm not sure, I won't say it. And that's one of the fallibilities of AI right now is it doesn't tell you if it's not sure.
Yeah, and I think we need to maybe incorporate an AI character into this podcast over time, if I can work out the tech, so that we can relentlessly mock it.
Well,
Without
I'm
accident.
very nervous about picking on my AI. I'm very nervous about picking on my AI in case it starts picking on me and my ego can't handle it.
Now, you know, there was something interesting I learned actually that relates to this, and there was an experiment in the '60s. I don't know if you heard about this. I just looked it up just before we jumped on. And I used AI to look it up because I couldn't remember the name, and it was actually in the 1960s. It was called the ELIZA program. And it was created by this guy, Joseph Weiserbaum in MIT in 1966. And it was a simple chatbot.
Mhm.
It was just designed to simulate, and you might understand this, Rogerian psychotherapist. It was meant to, have you heard of that? It was a type of
Probably not
psychotherapy.
since uni, I don't remember a lot.
And it was only it only used basic pattern matching to reflect the user's statements back to them as questions.
Mm.
And it turned out that people quickly formed emotional bonds and confided deeply personal information to it. And many people were really surprised, and actually people requested private therapy sessions with this. What's
Well
going on there, Em?
well, at the heart of it, as human beings, we wanna feel seen and heard, and that's why Socratic questioning is such a powerful tool. It's reflecting back at you, digging deeper into what you've said, and it's something that we use all the time with negotiations and with therapy and with hostile witnesses, is if we reflect yourself back at you in a way that's objective, you're gonna start to feel a connection because 'cause you're gonna feel seen and heard, and the brain isn't capable of distinguishing between human and machine in that context. All it can recognize is that I'm having myself mirrored back at me, and therefore I'm being seen and heard, and I feel valued. And that's a very powerful emotional tool, making someone feel seen and heard.
Oh yeah, and I like to think that I can use my left brain to see these as just machines, mathematical things, but I'm also a sucker. I'm also
Well,
also
I'd just say you're
in
also human, and
yeah.
fundamentally, we're back to the fact that there are parts of our brain that don't understand time and context. It reacts first, and this is where critical thinking becomes something that's gonna be imperative in the world of AI and incredibly valuable. Uh, Critical thinking is something that we're seeing declining, especially with, schools and universities increasing their use of tech, but it's also going to be the thing that distinguishes us as humans from machines and gives us the ability to see truth from fiction.
So from your perspective as a coach, what's missing when a chatbot tries to comfort someone compared to a human?
Well,
Especially during
the
crisis.
really obvious thing is a warm body. You know, like, I can't hold you, but that could just be a matter of time as well. There's a book, Clara and the Sun, that I read years ago when it first came out that rocked my world, and I think that there is a future where we end up with robots replacing humans in some contexts. I think that that could be exciting. It's also really disturbing that as humans, we're not we're losing our capacity for discomfort, and so it's affecting our ability to connect.
How do we have open conversations then about using AI as a tool and not letting it replace
I,
or
I think
genuine
I think there's a lot of
connections?
value in education. I think that educating people around how to use it as a tool and how to use it effectively as a tool so that you're not surrendering your cognitive ability. You're actually using it as something that gain you more time, more insight, more value. You know, make yourself do the work first. This whole idea of garbage in, garbage out is absolutely true. I've noticed that there's a decline in my cognitive ability to know where I am geographically. And laughingly, for a decade now, I've said that I'm geographically challenged, but that's actually garbage. I have navigated with one map and one glance at it, my family all over Europe in a car for 3 months. I can read a map. I just stopped because I had a map synced up with my car. So now one of the things I'm doing is forcing myself to drive places around Melbourne, which I know really well. I've lived here more than a decade. Where possible, avoid using the map. But it's going to take a bit of discipline because, you know, our brains want to take the easy way out. We're back to the idea of heuristics. All of that being said, maybe if our brains give up the effort around some of the more menial things like following a map or rewriting a sentence, we'll develop intelligence around other things. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't think Google replaced a lot of people's memories because you didn't need to have to brute force memory things. You could go
Yeah.
search it up, and I think it'll be the same with AI. There'll be things where we go actually that's perhaps around writing, for example. People might go that are excellent writers now might start to let AI do some of the writing, and whether or not that's a good thing.
Well, I think at the end of the day, AI can edit good writing, but when you have something that's written entirely by I still think that there's a soullessness to it. Whether humans can sense that or not is going to be a different conversation. But as an artist, someone who spends all my time watching people and thinking about how to help them connect better, there's something to be said for the authenticity that comes with. I've started leaving typos in my emails so people know it's me. But I got an email the other day from someone where I'd seen them the night before and they wanted to catch up with me, and their email was quite clearly a generic one where it had been personalized for me, but the majority of it was written not by her. And subsequently, I've not answered it. It's gone to the bottom of my priority pile.
Yeah, I did see somebody said, if you can't be bothered writing something, then why should I be
And
bothered
the
reading it?
irony of this is I'm very excited and very wanting to connect with her, but I just don't see the point in replying to an email that's written to me by a machine. Like looking at what my subconscious response is, because my conscious response was great. I received an email from them. I'm really excited to connect with them. I'll follow up with them. But there's something in my brain that just disengaged from that email and thought, oh, I can't be bothered. I'll just reach out to her when I'm ready to actually see her in person, because there's no point in us exchanging niceties between our machines. I want to connect with you
Yes.
as a human. So that will look like a text or a phone call, and then making a time to actually meet up in person when I've got the time, which I don't right now because I'm traveling. So
Yeah.
I think that subconsciously we're already disengaging. I
Yeah.
think that's
I
sad.
think
I
that's why
think
I
it's a
wanted
missed
to do this
opportunity.
podcast.
I think we're missing opportunities to connect.
And I think at the same time, there is this, there's wonderful growth in interesting discussions online with podcasts where you've just got two humans having a discussion. So, and I think when I think about writing, I sometimes use it to help with a difficult phrase or something like that. But I'm always conscious of making sure that it reflects my tone
Mm.
and my personality. And so that I think that, important to be self-aware. And I can be a little bit cheeky sometimes. And so I like to, if I, like a dad joke or something into an email, just to let them know it's
Yeah, and
me. I
I
think,
guess what you're tapping into is spontaneity, right? If AI
yeah.
is only responding to prompts, at the end of the day, it's not responding spontaneously. I had this conversation with my husband over the weekend when he keeps asking, can I help with this? Can I help with that? Do you want me to do this? And by the time I'm finished explaining to him, God bless him in his good intentions, I might as well have done it myself. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
value, I guess, as human beings in seeing another's need and spontaneously engaging in that and showing each other that's a type of care. I'm very conscious of the time. And
So I know, I think we're going to do one thing we've learned in the last week,
so,
and then one tip that people can take.
okay, so I've already done my thing. If you want to cut it and put it here, otherwise I'll say it again.
Yeah.
The insight that I had this week as a complete noob who's good at people with tech, but not good at tech myself, is that AI is actually a tool or an entity in and of itself. And it's not something it will become endemic, it'll become part of everything, but it is something that exists also in isolation as a piece of tech. Whereas if we look at something like Canva, that is fundamentally a tool that enables people to do something creative. And then we're adding AI to it, just as with, the music software that we use or any podcasting software we use, we're taking AI and putting it into that thing so we can also remove it. And so AI while it's everywhere all the time and we're all using it both passively and consciously, we don't actually have to use it. It's something we can choose to engage with if we think it's beneficial. It's not something that we're being forced to use or engage with unwillingly and passively. And then my tip would be to preserve your cognitive function and to preserve your ability for critical thought. Discipline yourself to disengage. Make sure that you create good material first before using AI. Start with having your critical thoughts as a human being. Start with gestating those ideas and then use AI as a tool to refine it rather than the origin of your thought.
Wonderful. And look, I suppose the one thing I learned this week, I didn't really understand the astronomical pricing of these GPUs and how much they cost. And working for a big tech company, we often can consume these things for demos and tests and all of that. And I was looking through the price of new GPUs, and they're 5-figure amount, very expensive. which I should know, but I just kind of had been oblivious, just getting on and building things.
Mm.
And then the thing that I suppose the tip to take away is, healthy boundaries. I think continuously what you do. I've got both my kids have access to AI, and I want them to learn about the technology, but also, not just setting boundaries about how to use it, but when to use it. So
Yeah.
putting time limits, I think, just to force you to do human
Yeah.
occasionally
Touch grass,
is
as
important. That's right.
as the
That's right.
zillennials would say.
Okay.
Okay. Good job,
One.
mate. Speak to you next week.
No worries.
See ya.
See ya. Now, just before we go, can you just leave it so that it uploads?